What does it look like from a perspective of what you should be tracking? What should you be following? And if you're just running ads, but you have no idea about the metrics you should be following. If you're running ads and you don't even have a spreadsheet, that's already a problem, right? If you're doing something, you don't even know, you don't have anything to track. If I say, yo, sit me down, if I sat down with you right now over a cup of coffee and I said, pull out your tracking spreadsheet. Show me your metrics from May. Show me your metrics from April. I want to see your metrics. Show me your metrics so I can look and see how your ad's performing and I can give you suggestions. If you're not tracking that, how are you gonna make decisions to grow? You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make sense. So that's why this is very important today. So what we're gonna focus on is I'm gonna give you three of the biggest types of metrics that I look at when it comes to running ads. I'm gonna give you a resource, and then if we have any questions at the end, we're gonna take some questions. ROAS, which is called return on ad spend. Return on ad spend. You wanna know what that is because you wanna know what am I putting out and what am I getting back? I mean, at a basic level, we're not doing it just to be doing it, right? Which means if I spent $1,000 this month on ads, meaning I paid Facebook $1,000 and they gave me, they're giving me exposure, right? They're giving me exposure. However, I want to know, well, what did I put out this month, which is 1,000, versus what did I make this month? So let's just say I spent $1,000 on ads, but I made $5,000 this month. Well, hot damn, you know what I'm saying? I have an ATM on my hands, right? I have a tool I've been able to leverage my dollars and I've been able to leverage these ads to spend a certain amount of money and generate a certain amount of revenue back in return. That's what we call return on ad spend. All of that, this recipe all mixed together is what's giving us the result of 1,000% ROI. So guess what we're gonna do? If we get in 10X, well, okay, cool. We could spend 200, but yo, let's up it. Let's spend 2,000 this week and let's see what we get. If we get in that type of results, if you got the budget and the return on ad spend is looking good, why wouldn't you want to put more in to get more out? Right? Would you rather put in 200 to get 2,000, or would you rather put in 2,000 to get 20,000? Think about it, right? Do you want your return to be 1,800 or do you want your return to be 18,000? Right? So that's the importance of ROAS. If there's nothing else that you track, please track the money that goes in versus the money that's coming out. And if you're putting money in and no money's coming out, then what does that tell you? It tells you something needs to be changed. But we're not going to put a blanket statement over it. What needs to be changed though? Think about that. What needs to be changed? So now you can start digging into this by yourself or with your team and say, okay, well, I spent $1,000 this month, but we didn't get our return on ad spend was 0. So then what does that tell you? Well, that can tell you multiple things. That can tell you, one, that, maybe were people clicking on it? Were people going through? Were people opting in? Okay, if they were, depending on what your follow-up process is, were they booking appointments? Were they responding? If they are, okay, well, what do the sales look like? Were they showing up on the calls? Are they, are we getting to the end of the consult and they're just saying no? Like, what's going on? Right? And this is what I'm coaching and consulting people on when I'm working with them in their business and we're optimizing their funnels or we're optimizing, the process, the customer journey. We have to dig into this level of detail to figure out what is happening. And that's why I love business too, just because it's a lot of moving parts, but once you figure it out though, it's amazing, and then you can continue to stack on top of each other and get better. But it takes the discipline of being able to do that. CPL is cost per lead. So we're also looking at, well, what is the cost per lead? We want to know, well, how much are we spending to get a lead? Wouldn't that make sense, right? If we're spending $1,000 per month on this campaign, well, how much are we spending? Are we spending $500 a lead? Okay, well, we spent $1,000 this month, but we only got 2 leads at $500. Well, I don't know what you're selling, but is that good? Is that bad? You feel what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Do you want to get more than 2 leads in a month? Do you need to get more 2 leads in a month based on your closing percentage? You feel what I'm saying? Like, you got to be able to understand and know some things about your industry, or know some things about what you're able to do and what you can't do. And if you're not sure about that, that's why you hire a coach. That's why you work with an agency that knows what they're doing. But you need to understand the cost per lead. Typically in our industry, I know I work with many different service providers, but typically in our industry, I like to keep my CPL under $20. But maybe, you might be able to do more, or you might do less. Some people get leads at like $5, $10, right? That doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong, because everybody has a different offer. You know what I'm saying? So, those are numbers that I'm looking at, right? I like to keep my leads lower, and generally, especially if it's like at the start of a kind of like a high ticket, I like to do something around $20 or less. All right, CPL. But that's another very important one you want to pay attention to. So ROAS, CPL, and then last police is CPA. And there's more, like I said, but these are the main three that I'm tracking. CPA is cost per acquisition. Cost per acquisition. And cost per acquisition is literally how much money am I spending to get a client. If I'm making, let's just say for every $1,000 I spend, I know that I'm at least going to get one client. And let's say I got a $10,000 program. Then cool. Then I know that my cost per acquisition is, my cost per acquisition is $1,000, right? I'm spending $1,000 to get one client. All right. So let's do it this way. Let's say I get 3 clients, right? So what that means is I'm spending $1,000, and how much is it cost per client to get? Basically about $333, right? Or let me make math easy for you. Let's say I spend $1,000 and I get 2 clients. So I spent $1,000, I got 2 clients. Out of the $1,000 that I spent, how much did I pay for each client? Essentially, I paid $500 for each client, right? What if I spent $1,000 and I got 10 clients out of that in a month? Then what is my cost per acquisition? My cost per acquisition is $100, right? It's because it's so when you're thinking about this number, you're basically dividing what is the amount of money that you spent versus the number of clients you got. The number of clients you got. So you got to be able to do that, right? How much does it cost you to, and that's important too, because then that also tells you, okay, I can spend up to X amount of dollars to get a client. Right? So if I could spend $1,000 and I can get, let's say, I get 2 clients for every $1,000 that I spent, my cost per acquisition is $500. Then I know, okay, I have up to $500 that I can spend in order to get this client. So let's say if you got a $10,000 program now, right? Now let's say, that, you spent, let's say 10, I wanted to do a kind of lower number, but it's the same thing no matter how you level it up. So even if you spend 10K and you get, let's say, 2 clients, then guess what? It's $5,000 per client. So it costs you $5,000 to get a client. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, you just got to understand how much money you can spend in order to be able to get that client. So that's what it's really about is understanding these numbers. How much can I spend? How much can I not spend? How much am I paying to get a client? And then that'll also help you out too in other areas, right? So like if you ever do want to go with like influencer marketing one day, or if you want to go with other forms of marketing, you know what you can afford, right? How do you know if you go to like a shade room for them to like run a post for you? Then how do you know whether that's a good amount for you to pay or not? You need to know how much does it cost to be able to acquire a client. Okay, well, if I give the shade room $5K and, I know that, my cost per acquisition is about, for me to get a client is about $500. Okay, well, cool. Well, then look, then I don't mind. You might say, I may want to pay less. You know what I'm saying? Because if If you're paying $5K, you say, okay, to acquire a client, I need to pay at least $500. Well, as long as you're paying, I'll put it this way, as long as you're paying anything more than it costs to acquire the client, is going to be a win for you, right? Because if you pay $5K and the cost to acquire a client is $500, and sometimes you may not notice until after you already make the investment. But so you may mess around and get multiple clients. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of paying attention to those three things. It's your cost per acquisition, it is your cost per lead, and then it's also your return on your ad spend. If you pay attention to those three things, you're going to find yourself being very successful running ads because you're paying attention to the right numbers that's going to help you. Right. There's no reality in this world where you're going to grow a successful business, especially through paid advertising, where you don't look at the numbers. In order to grow, you got to pay attention to the metrics. You got to measure it, right? You're not managing what you're not measuring. We've heard that before over and over and over. So you got to be able to measure it, but most people don't know what to measure. So this will give you a foundation of what you should start paying attention to and what you should start measuring with these advertisements. And this is something that did not come naturally to me. This is something that I've had to overcome and learn. And I know there's still more metrics to learn in different scenarios or different situations, right? So one of the biggest lessons that I observed as I've continued to surround myself with the network of people who are more successful than me, right? Whether it's 8, 7, 8, 9-figure earners, just people who got, whether it's way more influence, is one thing that I know. People are super successful in whatever way they do it. They always have metrics around what they do. Always. You see somebody they're growing their follower count at a rapid rate, or they just, let's say they got a bunch of followers online. I guarantee they're measuring some type of metrics. What posts are doing the best? What posts are getting the best? Are getting the best organic reach? What, you feel what I'm saying? Like, there is certain things that they're measuring, and it's no different than this. It's no different than this. When you're running paid advertisements, you got to pay attention to the metrics to see what's working. No different than the health. No different than your health. You got to pay attention. You want to lose weight, you got to step on the scale. You got to figure out what are you eating that's making you gain weight, or what are you eating or not eating that's making you lose weight. And then we got to measure ourselves. We got to measure our belly fat. We got to measure, our weight. We got to you know what I'm saying? Everything is around measurement. So the more successful you become, the more you have to get comfortable with measuring your progress and measuring your success.